I'd like to call this regular council meeting to order. Before we proceed, I want to acknowledge that the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Adirondack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people. We are the beneficiaries of ancient agreements, such as the dish with one spoon, between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of the land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The two-row wampum, by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect, and the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be the stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous peoples, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experience of the Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Innu people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We have the good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island. Would you all please rise for the invocation?
We meet to serve our community and endeavor to be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Let us be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, and courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, the roll call.
All members of council are present with the exception of Councillor Noyes.
Thank you. A few announcements this evening. The first has to do with a certificate that we received, the town of Fort Erie received from Canadian National, thanking us along with Operation Lifesaver Canada for proclaiming Rail Safety Week in 2024. And this is a Rail Safety Ambassador certificate that they have provided to us in appreciation of our support for their endeavor. So, Madam Clerk, I'll provide this to you, and I'm sure you'll find an appropriate place for it in your office. I also wanted to note that Planning Development Services is holding a couple of open houses in March. The first has to do with the tree bylaw update. That's on March the 19th between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. And that will be held here in the council chambers, as will the meeting on March the 27th from 5 to 7 relative to climate change action plan draft report prepared by our staff. I wanted to update the community on the fact that the resolution that we passed in October relative to continuation of funding for the operation of Douglas Memorial was supported shortly thereafter by the City of Niagara Falls. But on Thursday evening, I asked the Regional Council to support that resolution, and I'm excited to say that they did so unanimously, which is an indication to me that not only do the people of Fort Erie appreciate the significance of having an urgent care center and having diagnostics, palliative care beds, chronic care beds in Fort Erie, but obviously the elected officials from around Niagara appreciate the significance of that. I believe that's because they hear from their residents. 24% of the individuals who are served at Fort Erie's Urgent Care Center are people from outside of Fort Erie. So these are individuals who are coming from the various communities in Niagara. I believe that their elected officials understand the crisis that health care and hospital care is in Ontario, and particularly in Niagara. So I wanted to, again, thank my regional council colleagues, and I can say that we are continuing to press both the provincial government through the Premier and the Minister of Health and Niagara Health to support us in our efforts to have services at Douglas Memorial continue beyond the time when the new hospital is opened, which will be in 2028 or 2029. I also wanted to comment on an event that I attended last Wednesday at the Greater Fort Erie Secondary School. Councillor Christensen was there also. It was the Everyday Influencer Conference that was put together by students at Greater Fort Erie Secondary School. They invited students from, I believe it was 8 or 9 other high schools across Niagara, and they had a turnout of about 200 students. Mackenzie Arts was one of the main organizers, if not the organizer, and she is the chair of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee. There were a number of individuals from the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee who participated in organizing and planning that event. It was a wild success, and the one breakout session that we attended was truly inspirational. And for all of the occasions when we think that the future of our society isn't in good hands, that influencer conference certainly provided an eye-opening example of how well some of the young people in our community are prepared for and being prepared for the future. So I wanted to thank Mackenzie Arts and everyone who assisted her in that program. It was a fantastic event, and I know that other schools are looking at trying to replicate that in Niagara. I wanted to make a comment. It was brought to my attention earlier today that one of the candidates in the provincial election, not through her own doing, but through someone on Facebook, suggested that I've endorsed a candidate for the provincial election. I've been the mayor for, this is year 20, I believe, and I've never endorsed a candidate for a federal or provincial election while I've been the mayor, simply because I don't believe it's a prudent practice, and I don't believe that the people of Fort Erie, A, particularly care what I think relative to the politics, or B, want to think that I'm partisan in any way, because I have to, as all of us on this council, have to work with the elected officials, no matter which party they represent, no matter whether it's provincial or federal. So I just want to assure the community that the Facebook post was completely false. I did something which I very rarely do. I responded and commented on the post, simply stated, completely false, please take this down. And so I wanted to assure the community that I haven't publicly endorsed any candidate, and nor will I before the election. Which brings me to my final announcement. For everyone who's voted, thank you. You know, one of the hallmarks of a free and democratic society is the right to elect our leaders. And so I hope that everyone in this community will take the time to vote. If you haven't already voted, take the time on February the 27th to vote, because that is how we craft the future of our communities, and that is how we perpetuate the gift that democracy is to us. So that's all I've got to say. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a conflict with BBS 14-2025, which is the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, red line revision to the draft plan of subdivision information and recommendation report for 10747 Craft Road, as well as BBS 15-2025, the proposed official plan zoning amendment report for lands located at 1278 Terry Drive. My wife and I are both in the catchment area and have our homes adjacent to these two properties.
Thank you. Any others? Then I'm going to go back. I got onto my soapbox there and I forgot to mention there's an addendum. So we have some changes to PBS 16-2025, which is the proposed draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of condominium elements, condominium information and recommendation report. They're outlined in the addendum, and they relate to a couple of the resolutions which make reference to appendices, which has now been corrected, and also with respect to bylaw 14-2025, there has been an amendment with respect to that. Schedule A has been revised to accurately reflect the contents of that bylaw. Okay. If there are no other declarations of pecuniary interest, then we have an upcoming public meeting and open house with respect to a zoning bylaw amendment for 3741 Nye Road, and that will be held here in the council chamber on Monday, March the 17th, 2025 at 6 p.m. There's usually an information report, and that typically comes out the Wednesday prior to that. That takes us to the regional councillor's report. Councillor Encina, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Redekop, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. The Niagara Regional Housing Build on Crescent Road will be soon be ready for occupancy. This was supposed to happen several months ago, as councillors are aware, but due to construction deficiencies, moving people into the facility has had to wait. NRH staff believe that residents will be allowed to move in by March of this year. I really have my fingers crossed, and I'm hoping for that. Excuse me. The Consolidated Housing Master Plan was presented to the Niagara Regional Housing Board last week. Currently, NRH have 3,051 units, and the plan is to have at least 6,037 by year 2050. These numbers only deal with land that NRH currently own and the intensification of existing properties. Excuse me. The proposed plan calls for the development of new units first, then the intensification of existing buildings. Excuse me. The plan there is that if they have to have units available to move people in houses that they're going to sell, they have somewhere to put them as they intensify and build up. So they'll do it that way. The master plan calls for selling off of several properties using the proceeds to develop more affordable housing. The financing of the plan was broken down with potential funding sources coming from end of mortgages, excuse me, which roughly 6% or 120 million. Land disposition, which comes in at about 17.5 million, about 1%. The general levy, and that is proposed an increase of 0.2% on the levy each year. And government grants, which cannot be determined at this time. There are no DCs that can be used, so funding would have to come from the region, provincial or federal governments. Partnerships with other nonprofit agencies are being explored, along with private developers. Of interest, the excess land surrounding the new Gilmore Lodge and the old site have not been added to the plan and is, excuse me, and is not currently under the ownership of Niagara Regional Housing. The plan, as I was advised, is fluid and can and will be altered as time progresses. I do foresee in the future, I will be looking at asking the region for the property be transferred over, those properties be transferred over to Niagara Regional Housing or disposed of at a certain point in time. Understand if you've driven by, you've seen the fencing around the old Gilmore Lodge property. There are currently 6 projects in the master plan that would impact Fort Erie if funding is available and would take place in the next 3 to 5 years. I have asked that the housing master plan be shared and explained at the Town of Fort Erie Affordable Housing Committee, and I will be following up with this to ensure that that has been completed. I do have the master plan here. If you'd like, I will share it with the clerk, provided I can get a copy back.
Is that available online for anybody who's interested in it?
I'm not sure yet. It was through Niagara Regional Housing. It goes before it goes to council in May, but this is now a public document anyways.
Okay,
So I can do that.
sure.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Encina. Does anyone have any questions of Councillor Encina this evening? Short evening.
All right.
Okay, that takes us then to presentations and delegations, and this evening we have Mary McClellan-Papp and Keith Radcliffe, who are the co-chairs of the Fort Erie Museum and Cultural Heritage Committee, to make some presentations with respect to some heritage plaques. Good evening.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. As you know, we are volunteers appointed by council to advise on heritage and museum matters. Our Heritage Standing Committee evaluates properties, and if they meet at least 2 of the 9 criteria outlined in the Ontario Heritage Act, we recommend to council that the property be designated. The 9 criteria are grouped under 3 main categories: design value, historic value, and contextual value. In January 2023, the province amended the Ontario Heritage Act and gave municipalities throughout the province a time limit to designate properties on the registry lists before they would drop off and not be eligible for reconsideration for another 5 years. We've been very busy trying to meet that deadline. Since 1985, the third week of February has been declared Heritage Week in Ontario. Tonight, we are celebrating that by presenting plaques to the owners of 3 elite properties, all of which met criteria in each of the main categories. We have an elegant home that housed militia during the War of 1812, a beautiful Queen Anne farmhouse built for one of the leading citizens of Bertie Township, and a building that is one of the most recognizable in downtown Ridgeway. Designation protects our history and heritage for future generations. The families who preceded us created the community and the values that define us today. In preserving their buildings and their stories, we remind ourselves of who we are, where we came from, and what values we want to pass on that will help to define and strengthen future generations. So thank you to our owners for their commitment and care of our shared heritage, and thank you to our mayor and councillors for their commitment and support of the work of this committee. Keith Ratcliffe, who chairs our Heritage Standing Committee, will introduce the owners and the individual properties, and I believe, Your Honour, you are going to present the plaques and the books. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Radcliffe.
Yes, sir. Are you going to join us?
Sure.
And Mary, you going to help with the books, please?
Oh. There's no rest for the wicked.
Yeah.
I'll hold the book. You're doing the plaques here?
Okay, our first property is,
You need to state here, you need to address council and speak in.
oh, okay. Thank you. Our first property is 164 Point Avenue Road South, a representative example of Queen Anne farmhouse architecture and a 19th century farmstead. The home was built circa 1893 by John McLeod, a significant member of the Ridgeway farming community. I'd ask owners Edwin, Tony, and Susan McGowan to come to accept the plaque. Just one? You're on 3? Okay.
I'm guessing you're Susan. Congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. And there's a book, Susan.
So here's what we're going to do. You're going to stand in the middle.
Oh, dear.
Keith, you're going to stand on one side.
Okay.
Mary, you're going to stand in here. You're going to let,
Oh, okay.
you're going to let Cole take the photo.
Right here. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Some comments as well.
Our second property is 304 Ridge Road North. It's a representative example of Tudor Revival architecture in downtown Ridgeway. Commercial operations commenced there in 1874 by J.A. Beeshy and Zachariah Teal. The original Wedgwood basalt plaque, the Potter, from the building now sits at the Royal Ontario Museum. And I ask Karen and John Arbor to come forward, please.
This is John's.
This is John Johnson.
Yeah.
You weren't,
No,
Tom
yeah.
Arbor.
Yeah, no.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Put you guys in here.
Yeah, I don't think she's here, yeah. Okay, so I don't have to do anything for the final one? Okay.
I want to thank our Museum and Cultural Heritage Committee for all of the work that they've done. It's been a tremendous task, and I know that some of the members are here. We certainly appreciate it. Your volunteer group and the amount of time and energy that you have put into these initiatives is nothing less than remarkable. So thank you, and keep up the good work. I want to thank the property owners who have cooperated with the municipality in permitting the designation of their properties. This is an important aspect of the history of our community, and it's a guidepost to the future because it tells us where we've come from and it helps us to determine where we're going. So I want to thank you and all of the other property owners who have facilitated helping us to preserve our history and heritage. And I know that the committee, the staff here has worked very hard to make sure that there's a good understanding of the significance of this for the property owners, and that we want to work with all of the property owners as we go forward. So thank you very much for your being here this evening and participating in this program. Okay, and on that happy note, if you folks feel that you want to leave, you're more than welcome to do that. There's some really exciting stuff coming up. Really exciting if you're an elected official, I guess. Okay. So we have a couple of public meetings this evening relative to development proposals. And these meetings will be held the same way. We will, as a council, hear from a member of staff with respect to the background. We have received a report which we'll be dealing with after the public meeting is completed. Once, well, my understanding is they're not. Right, okay. I neglected the second delegation that we have. That's Max Fedshak, Senior Planner, and Jerry Tran, Manager of Urban Design and Development, with respect to a report later on our agenda with respect to a proposal for a parcel of property on Rebstock Road. Sorry, gentlemen.
Good evening, Council. No worry at all. We just hope to be part of the exciting stuff that the mayor mentioned tonight. So thank you for letting us address council tonight. My name is Jeremy Train, and my colleague here, Max Fedshak. We are planners at MPG Planning Solution. We're the agent for the draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of common element condominium application at Rebstock Road. So this item, there's another item on the agenda tonight, item number 12.1, that is a staff report concerning the two applications. And since we are talking about the same application, subject to council permission and concurrence, we want to make one suggestion, and that is to move item number 12.1 up to be discussed in conjunction with this delegation that we have. That way, council could benefit from speaking to us as well as staff at the same time while making a decision on the applications.
So is that it for your comments?
So we want to make a suggestion whether it's possible to move it up.
Suggestion. I think you should proceed with your presentation.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So as councils may be aware, council approved a site-specific zoning bylaw for this property last year, and the application that you see today, the draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of condos, so these are technical in nature, and these are application to implement the zoning bylaw that was approved. And if approved after this application, there would be another detailed design stage to be followed, where we have to address all the conditions of the draft plan, and a lot of the detailed comments and matter would be addressed through this stage. We have reviewed the staff report, and we concur with staff recommendation for the draft plan to be approved with the list of conditions attached in the report. We noticed that staff has also summarized some of the comments, questions that the application has received from the public to date. And we would also want to provide some additional information, clarification with respect to some of these comments to help council with your decision. So the first matter would be, so we are aware, and staff has pointed out as well, that in some of the draft plan, there are inconsistent information with the site plan, with the zoning bylaw, and these would be revised through the detailed design stage, and the final plan of the subdivision and the condo would be revised so that they would be consistent with the site plan as well as the zoning bylaw. The second matter is with respect to the elevation design. So one of the residents has brought up that the elevation design that we submitted for the draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of condo is different from the elevation design that was submitted as part of the minutes of settlement for the zoning bylaw amendment. And we want to point out that there are some minor changes in the elevation, but substantially, the elevation design remained the same, with you using gable roof. The building location and setback and the building typologies are exactly the same with the elevation design in the minutes of settlement. And in the decision of the minutes of settlement, it was mentioned that minor changes are permitted to the site plan and the renderings, as long as they are in substantial conformity with the site plan and the renderings were presented to the tribunal. And it is in our opinion that the elevation design that we submitted as part of these applications are in substantial conformity with the site plan and renderings that we submitted to the tribunal through the minutes of settlement. The third items that we want to talk about is with respect to parking. The proposed development currently provide 114 parking spaces, which is more than what the site-specific zoning bylaw currently requests. We provide one parking space for each of the dwelling unit, and we also provide visitor parking at a rate of 0.25 spaces per dwelling unit. The fourth items would be with respect to the pedestrian connection that we're proposing at the northern end of the property, connecting the subdivision to the park to the west. So this is part of our effort to improve connectivity and to allow the future residents of this subdivision to have easy and convenient, safe access to the park and recreational network that the town currently have. And through the detailed design stage, we would definitely work with staff to make sure that this connection would meet the town development standards and requirements. And lastly, with respect to the tree bylaw, we want to note that because the pre-consultation for these applications came in before the tree bylaw came into effect, so technically the application are not subject to the tree bylaw, but we did, through the proposed development, we did propose a landscape plan that will introduce 120 trees to the development as part of the effort to make up for the trees that will be removed because of the application. And that's all of the comments that I have, and we'll be here if council have any questions for the applications. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tran. Do any members of council have any questions right now? Okay, so you may be seated.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any objection to us moving up PBBS 16 to be dealt with right now? Okay, so can I have a mover for PBBS 16 2025, please, Councillor Lewis? So that That report is on the floor for any questions or comments. Yeah, we need a seconder, Councillor Dubanow. Okay, so that's seconded by Councillor Dubanow. Okay, so it's on the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have a couple.
Ms. Dewaria?
Yes, Your Worship, through you to the councillor. There are some discrepancy regarding the site plan measurement and the draft plan of condominium, the setback that has been shown for the rear yard. That can be addressed through inserting a new condition in the in the draft plan of condominium and subdivision. That has been an error on the plan that was submitted by NPG. So that is a discrepancy. Then regarding the park connection, which is, I don't think that's a discrepancy. That is a good connection they're providing. Regarding the height of the building, they're still complying with the the bylaw that was provided by OLT. But only difference that has happened is the previous rendering that was shown to council did not include the balconies, but the new design shows the balcony, and that's the outdoor amenity space that they are providing.
So that's a
but
bit
that
more-
doesn't change the intent.
So that's a bit more than the question. But did you have another question, Councillor Lewis? Okay.
Through you to Mayor, to the councillor, the OPA is not, that was part of the OLT decision. There is an appendix that addressed the OPA requirement. So in our professional opinion, that has been taken care of. To you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, the tree bylaw would not be in effect for this property because the pre-con was done before the bylaw came in effect. And there is a section in the tree bylaw that talks about if the pre-con was done before the bylaw came in effect, the subsequent application would, the tree bylaw would not apply to those subsequent applications. Through your worship to the mayor, that's to the councillor, yes, that's correct.
Anyone else? So, Ms. Dewaria, we did receive a 16-page memo from a former resident, and I don't know whether you're prepared to respond to all 16 pages, all of the various issues that were raised. One of the things that the delegates raised this evening was the discrepancy with respect to the site plan, some inconsistencies contained in that. Is that not something that could be addressed by altering the site plan now so that it's clearly in compliance with the minutes of settlement of the OLT decision?
Your worship, the site plan complies with the decision of OLT. It's the draft plan of condominium and the subdivision that are not in compliance. So it's an oversight on the applicant's part, and they can revise that plan. That plan needs to be revised.
Okay, and we have there's plenty of time, as I understand it, between the application being deemed complete and when this council has to make a decision with respect to the two items before us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So there's no mischief if the matter were deferred for a period of time to make sure that whatever the inconsistencies may be or whatever corrections need to be made can be made, and for staff to provide a clear response to the issues that have been raised by Ms. Blackery?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay. Anyone else? Back to you, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. And that being the case, I would like to move a motion to defer this until the next regular council meeting so that staff can look at the information that's being submitted and ensure that the information coming before council is accurate and we're making a decision with the complete information in front of us.
Thank you. And is the next regular council meeting the 24th? March 31st? Okay. So that would be to defer to March 31st. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Christensen? No debate on that. It's only to the timing. There is no comments on that. All those in favor of deferring this? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. So now we can move to the public meetings. Thank you. So as I was commenting, with respect to the public meetings before us this evening, of which there are two, council will hear from staff relevant to the information pertaining to the application for the particular public meeting. Council has an opportunity to question staff if they wish. Thereafter, the proponent or the agent of the proponent can address council and provide any comments they might wish to, again, subject to questions by council. Then I'm going to ask if there's anyone other than the proponent who wishes to speak in favor of the application, again, subject to questions by councillors. Then anyone who wishes to speak in opposition or to ask questions about the matter, and again, subject to questions by council. I'll then go at the various stages to Mr. Patton, who will determine and advise us whether there's anyone in the digital waiting room who wishes to speak to council. And finally, I will ask the clerk if there has been any late arriving communication with respect to the application, which she will refer to. And then the meeting will likely be declared closed, and then we'll move forward with the report. So the first application is a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for property on Craft Road, known, actually is closer to Crescent Road, known as Crescent Acres subdivision. And I see, Ms. Shugan, that you're here to provide us with some background information. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, members of the public. My name is Robin Shugan. I am the Intermediate Development Planner with the Town of Fort Erie. The purpose of tonight's presentation and public meeting is to provide information and a recommendation to Council for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment and revision to the draft plan of subdivision for the lands municipally known as 0-10747 Craft Road, Crescent Acres. The applications have been submitted by Upper Canada Consultants, Joseph Tomeno, on behalf of the owner of Crescent Acres Limited, Matt Vartanian. The subject lands are proposed to be rezoned from the site-specific residential multiple 1779 zone to a new site-specific RM1 zone. The site-specific regulations requested are to reduce the lot frontage and the lot area for the single detached dwellings, and to reduce the driveway setbacks from a street line from both the single detached dwellings and townhouse dwellings. Notice of today's public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act by placing a sign on the subject lands and circulating the notice of public meeting by regular mail on February 4th, 2025 to all registered property owners within a 120-meter radius. Okay, this is the timeline for the development application process. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is subject to a 90-day processing timeline that begins the day the application is deemed complete and will stop the day council makes a decision on the application. Right now, we are at the public meeting and recommendation report, which is day 81 of the 90-day timeline. The subject property is located in Crescent Park neighborhood in the town of Fort Erie on the east side of Crescent Road and south side of Garrison Road. Land uses surrounding the subject lands. So to the north, we have commercial uses along Garrison Road, a vacant commercial land, vacant residential land, and some existing single detached dwelling units and Garrison Public School. To the south, we have single detached dwellings, a largely vacant land that is the site of a radio transmission tower facility. And to the east, largely vacant land that is also the site of a radio transmission tower facility. And to the west, we have single detached dwellings. The proposed plan of subdivision is in close proximity to numerous commercial amenities along Garrison Road, Garrison Public School, and St. Philomena Catholic Separate School. These amenities are in walking distance, and the proposed development is also within the service area for Spears Estate Park and Ferndale Park. Okay, this site is approximately 10.68 hectares in area and is currently vacant. Although the municipal address is 0-10747 Craft Road, the property does not have frontage on Craft Road, which is to the east. All frontages are on Crescent Road. Okay, this is a view looking south from the subject lands. From the north and the east. Okay. The subject lands are designated urban residential in the town of Fort Erie's official plan. The urban residential designation is intended for a variety of housing forms such as single detached dwellings, semis, and townhouses. No amendments to the official plan is proposed. Okay, the subject lands are currently zoned residential multiple 1779 zone. The applicant seeks to rezone the subject lands to a new site-specific residential multiple 1 zone, and the EP and RM1 zones will remain. Okay, this is an illustration of the 2023 draft approved plan of subdivision. The draft approved plan contains 220 dwelling units, which contains 67 detached dwelling units, 4 blocks for 8 semi-detached dwellings, 25 blocks for 145 townhouse dwellings, 1 block for a stormwater pond, 1 block for a water course, and 1 block for a future road connection. And here we have an illustration of the revised draft plan of subdivision, which the proposed draft plan contains a total of 238 dwelling units, consisting of 86 single detached dwellings, 4 blocks for 8 semi-detached dwellings, 24 blocks for 144 townhouse dwellings, 1 block for a stormwater management pond, 1 block for a water course, and 1 block for the future road connection. And this is an illustration of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Part 1 will be the proposed site-specific RM1 zone. Part 2 will remain EP for the 15-meter vegetative buffer for the water course, and Part 3 will remain RM1. Okay, and this is a chart to illustrate the requirements of the RM1 zone, the existing RM1779 zone, and for the proposed site-specific RM1 zone. So the RM1 requirements and the existing RM1779 zone both require a minimum lot frontage of 12 meters for interior lots and 15 meters for exterior lots. The proposed site-specific RM1 zone is to have a minimum lot frontage of 10 meters for interior lots and a lot frontage of 11.8 meters for exterior lots. The RM1 zone require, and the, RM1779 also both require 375 square meter for lot area, and the proposed site-specific RM1 zone is requesting a 300 square meter lot area. And both the RM1 zone and the existing RM1779 zone both have the general provisions require a 7.5 meter setback from a proposed driveway and intersection of a street line, and the proposed amendment in the RR1 site-specific zone is requesting a 6 meter setback. So this is an illustration of the revised draft plan. In yellow, yellow indicates the single detached lots with reduced lot area and lot frontage. The orange lots indicate the single detached dwelling units with reduced lot area, lot frontage, and reduced minimum driveway distance to an intersection of a street line. And the pink indicates the townhouse lots with the reduced minimum distance of driveway to the intersection street line. Okay, and this is an illustration of the typical lot layout for the single detached dwellings. As you may see, the layout shows the reduced lot frontage and lot area. The black dashed lines indicates a building envelope that meets front yard, interior yard, and rear yard setbacks. It also illustrates that each lot will accommodate 2 parking spaces as well as sufficient private amenity space in the rear yard. A public information open house was held January 8th, 2025. The notice of open house was posted on the town's website and a sign was posted on the subject lands. Town planning staff, agent, and owner were in attendance. No members of the public attended the meeting and no written comments were received at that time. And this concludes the public meeting presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Ms. Shugan? Could you just go to the plan of the subdivision that showed where the various lots were located? And in particular, yes, that's it. And in particular, the ones that indicate the reduced driveway distance to the street line. So those are the ones with the darker yellow. And so Street A comes in, there's going to be a reduced distance between the driveway of Lot 48, it looks like, and the street. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, correct.
And that's safe in that context?
The subdivision and the subdivision was reviewed by engineering services and they did not express any concerns.
Okay, I'll have some questions when we get to the report. Thank you. Thank you very much. So then we'll ask if there's anyone from the applicant or the applicant's agent who wishes to address council. Good evening.
Good evening.
You're Joe Tomeno?
Yes, good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Joe Tomeno. I'm a senior planner with Upper Canada Consultants. I'm the agent representing Crescent Acres Limited. Crescent Acres Limited operates as Mountain View Homes. Ms. Shugan has already done a very thorough job of explaining the application through her presentation, so I don't intend to repeat too much of her information. I'll make a brief presentation and I'll make myself available for questions. Nope. Sorry about this. Pardon me? Yeah. That slide, yeah. As you heard, the Crescent Acres development is located in the Crescent Park neighborhood. The site is adjacent to a commercial area along Garrison Road, residential dwellings in the Crescent Park neighborhood, and radio tower lands to the east. The site historically has been used for cash cropping, and that use is now ceased. The official plan designated it for residential development, and the majority of it is already zoned for single detached dwellings and townhomes. This slide shows the plan of subdivision that was previously approved on the Crescent Acres site. The plan was approved back in May of 2023 and included 67 lots for single detached dwellings, 4 semi-detached blocks, and 24 street townhouse block, accommodating 145 street townhouses. This is the proposed draft plan of subdivision. This proposed plan increases the total number of units from 220 units to 238 units, an increase of 19 single detached dwellings and a decrease of 1 townhouse dwelling. The plan also includes 2 large open space areas. The open space area in the north part of the plan includes the existing water course that flows through the property in this area. The water course will be protected from development with restrictive environmental protection zoning. The second open space is the south of the plan, is over 2 acres. This open space area will include a stormwater management pond and associated plantings. The storm pond has been designed with gentle side slopes, so it would not need to be fenced. This 2-acre block of land will be conveyed to the town following development and will be accessible to the public for open space uses. The zoning of the site was changed with the previously approved plan of subdivision. The zoning is currently zoned RM 1779 site specific and environmental protection. The proposed zoning, site specific, once again, with the additional provisions regarding lot frontages, lot areas, and the request for the provision for the driveways on the corner lots. There were a number of studies that were updated and submitted with the application. This included a noise study, a functional servicing study, and a traffic impact brief. The noise study assessed the possible impacts from the commercial area on future residents. It concluded that the provided certain measures were incorporated into the building's design, noise impacts could be mitigated. The functional servicing study and stormwater study assessed the capacity of the municipal sanitary and water services in this area. The study determined that more than an adequate capacity is available to service the development. In addition, the functional service report prepared by Upper Canada was peer-reviewed by the town's consultant and confirmed the same conclusions. The traffic brief was updated to account for the additional 18 units and confirms that the study intersections don't require any improvements. As shown in Robin's presentation, this is a typical lot layouts for the single detached dwellings, and this just shows that adequate provisions are for 2 parking spaces, and there's no, we're not requesting any exemptions to the interior yards, exterior yards, or the rear yards, so the amenity space remains the same. Here you have some typical house elevations. As you can see, the house designs are attractive and a combination of modern and traditional designs. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tomino. Are there any members of council that have any questions? Is it anticipated that all of the houses are going to be 2-story?
But considering the lot frontages and the building, I would say yes.
I'm not sure I'm understanding that. Because it's small lots, you have to have 2 stories?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be 2 stories, but the
To get 2,200 feet, you'd have to go 2 stories.
for sure would have to be 2 stories, yes.
Okay.
If it was a bungalow, it'd be you're down to 1,100 square feet.
Which would, none of these houses are likely going to be affordable or attainable within the definition created by the government.
Yes, I wouldn't use the word affordable, but the requesting the reduced lot frontages makes it more attainable.
Okay. And I believe there's also a traffic study that was done with respect to this, and the suggestion was that there'd be no need for any changes in intersections like Garrison and Crescent Road.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Torino. You may have a seat. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward, sir. Or did you jump the gun there?
I jumped the gun, I have
Okay,
comments.
okay, yeah. So we'll do if there's anybody who wishes to speak in favor first. If there's no one here, Mr. Patton, is there anyone in the digital waiting room?
Nobody in the digital waiting room.
No one at all?
No one at all.
Okay, so there's no hands to be raised. Okay, since there are none that want to speak in favor, sir, would you come forward and you can provide comments to council? Good evening, and I need your full name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor, Redekop, and Council. My name is Mark Charlong. I live at 958 Crescent Road. I'm also speaking on behalf of my neighbor who's 90 at 964, who also hard of hearing that he wouldn't be able to do it online. We have quite a few concerns. One is the traffic, where they said that with 238 homes, how is it only 2% more traffic when both streets enter Crescent Road? That doesn't make any sense. Crescent Road's already busy as it is. And the one street that will be entering closest to Garrison is very close to Garrison Road, which I can see a lot of accidents happening there, especially with entrances to both parking lots for the malls, like the strip stores. Also, there's another concern, the Osprey's nest on one of the radio towers, which I've been in contact with Guelph Ministry of Forestry, and they told me that the nest, because it's on a radio tower, cannot be moved, cannot be relocated, because it's the rarity of it being on a radio tower, as well as their protected species, and cannot be disturbed between March and September for mating season. And as well as we do have a family of owls out back, we here nightly have not yet found their home, but there is a family of owls which are also protected. And then it brings me to my other concern about the infrastructure. We already lose hydro enough as it is with heavy storms. You add another 238 homes, guaranteed we're going to be losing a lot more power, as well as the schools are pretty full as it is to obtain more students, and the chance of our hospital closing. And that's a big concern. In the past, I've had to go as far as Niagara Falls to go and get stitches because our hospital's not open. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. How do you spell your last name, sir?
CHARLONG. And
Okay.
January 8th meeting, we never got a notice for it, so we didn't even know about it.
And you live right,
Right.
you bound this,
It's going to be in our backyard.
yeah. Before you go, do any members of council have any questions of Mr. Shergan? So those are all good questions, and some of them if other councillors don't, I'll be raising them with staff.
And just so you know, I spoke to Guelph Ministry of Forestry today again, and they're supposed to be getting back to me in the next couple of days to do with the birds.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's very helpful, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address council with respect to this matter? Mr. Patton, there's still no one in the digital waiting room?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay. Have we received any late correspondence, Madam Clerk, with respect to this?
No additional comments, Mayor Redekop.
Okay. So then I'm going to declare this public meeting closed, and Councillor Christensen, you have the resolution with respect to this matter, this report?
Yes, Your Worship, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that Council approves the amendments to the Town Zoning Bylaw 129-90 and red line revision to the draft plan of subdivision as detailed in Report PBBS-14-2025 for the lands known as 0-10747 Crescent Acres. That Council approves the Crescent Acres draft plan of subdivision red line revision dated April 4th, 2024, showing 86 lots for single detached dwellings, 4 blocks for 8 semi-detached dwellings, 24 blocks for 144 townhouse dwellings, 1 block for a water course, 1 block for a stormwater pond, and 1 block for a future road connection as attached as Appendix 4 of report number PBBS 14-2025 in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, and the regulations thereunder, subject to conditions contained in Appendix 5 of report number PBBS 14-2025, that Council directs staff to submit the necessary bylaw.
Questions or comments? Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I'm just wondering if perhaps staff could comment. I recall from the last time that this was raised that there was some discussion about pedestrian access, getting them across to the sidewalk and making it easier to access Ferndale Park. And I believe there was an agreement to add pedestrian crossovers on Crescent Road. And I'm just wondering, with respect to this updated plan, is that also included?
Ms. Shugan, are you going to respond to these questions?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, to Councillor Dubanow, the crosswalks are still part of the plan.
And if I may continue, Your Worship?
Yes, you may.
The resident who spoke earlier did raise a good point with regard to the radio tower. I'm just wondering, is staff able to confirm? I'm not sure that tower is on this property. Is the tower on this property or is it on the neighboring property?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, to Councillor Dubanow, it's my understanding the radio tower is not on the subject lands.
Okay. Those are all the other questions I have. I'll leave the rest for everyone else.
Okay. Anyone else? So while you're up there, Ms. Shogan, this plan doesn't directly front on Crescent Road, but it has 2 access streets. And my understanding is that there was some discussion about sidewalk access from the north entrance off of Crescent Road up to Garrison Road. Is that part of the plan?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, can you just repeat your question?
Repeat the question, is that what you just asked?
Yes,
me?
please.
Okay, so that'll be difficult. So there'd been some discussion about a sidewalk connecting Garrison Road to at least the north access street off of Crescent Road into this subdivision. Is that part of the plan?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, at this time I don't have that information, but I can find that out. I do know that there are sidewalks proposed within the internal subdivision. However, I can bring that question back.
Right, and my understanding is, and it was confirmed by Mr. Dubanow, that there was a traffic study which says, quite surprisingly, that there's going to be no need for any improvements at the intersection of Garrison and Crescent Road. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, the TIS concluded that there were no traffic concerns.
If this passes and before the bylaw comes before council, is it possible for you to do a little bit more research on that? Because I find it hard to believe that we'd be putting in 238 new residents, all of which will be funneling to Crescent Road, most of which will be funneling north to Garrison Road, which is already a busy intersection. And it's not so much traffic making a right-hand turn off of Crescent onto Garrison or making a right-hand turn off of Garrison onto Crescent. But making a left-hand turn off of Crescent onto Garrison now is challenging. With vehicles coming westbound on Garrison Road to make a left-hand turn onto Crescent, that's going to make it even more challenging. So is this something that you could have opportunity to further look into, because I presume that if it's determined at some point that a signal is going to be required, somebody is going to be paying for that signal, and I'm guessing that's going to be the municipality.
Through you, Mayor Redekop, I can further look into that inquiry.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Appendix 6, which has the lot plan. So this particular zoning provides for a minimum 6 meter rear yard. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, it will meet the requirements of the zoning, yes.
Which I believe is 6 meters rear yard.
Through you, Mayor Redekop, yes, the minimum rear yard setback is 6 meters.
Okay. And there was a comment made by Mr. Sherlong about the hydro. All of the electrical lines, the communication lines in this subdivision are going to be underground?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, I can look into that further. I'm not sure if I can direct that to infrastructure services.
I expect that's what it'll be, because I think those are our rules. But if you could clarify that, I'd appreciate that. And I noticed that we did receive correspondence from the District School Board of Niagara. And surprisingly, there was no comment that I saw with respect to capacity. And we didn't receive a correspondence at all from the Catholic School Board, is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Redekop, we did not receive correspondence.
So between now and when we pass the bylaw, could you maybe get some information as to what the capacity is at both Garrison Road and St. Philomena, and what the actual numbers of students at those schools are right now? Because I think it's pretty common knowledge that they're way beyond capacity, at least Garrison Road certainly is. Yeah, okay, those are the questions that I had. Does anyone else have any other questions? Councillor Lewis.
I just had one, and that was, there was a comment about not receiving notice for the meeting, and I'm wondering
Yes.
if you could just maybe speak to how notice was provided for the public open house.
Through you, Mayor Redekop, to Councillor Lewis, the notice of open house was during the postal strike. So for that, we were given direction to post on the website and post on the subject lands.
Thank you.
So hopefully there won't be a postal strike in the future, but wouldn't it be prudent, I mean, we're talking about residents who live within a certain proximity of the development, 200 meters?
Correct.
So if we run into this situation in the future, would it not be possible for us to take the initiative and make sure that notice is delivered to each of those residents? I mean, it would be a relatively small number, I would think.
Through you, Mayor Redekop, that is something we can discuss within our department, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. Are there any comments? If not, then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the recommendations? Opposed, that is carried. That takes us to the second public meeting, and that is related to official plan and zoning bylaw amendments for Spears High Point subdivision. And we're going to follow the same process that we did in the last one. This is a parcel owned by Yiliming International Real Estate Limited, and the consultants are Upper Canada. So we have before us Mr. Morton to provide some background information relative to the application. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public in attendance this evening. My name is Devin Morton, and I am the Supervisor of Development Approvals in the town of Fort Erie. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide information and a recommendation to Council as it relates to the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications for lands municipally known as the Spears Gardens subdivision, formerly known as Lulong Ping Gardens. The applications were submitted by Upper Canada Consultants, care of William Highcoop, on behalf of Yillaming International Real Estate. Statutory requirements of the Planning Act were satisfied by circulating a notice of complete application and open house by regular mail on December 20th, 2024, to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands. Furthermore, statutory requirements of the Planning Act were satisfied by circulating a notice of public meeting by regular mail on February 3rd, 2025, to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands, by placing a sign on the subject lands, and by circulating a range of external review partners and agencies electronically via email. So the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications are subject to a 120-day processing and review timeline. The timeline begins the day the applications are deemed complete and concludes the day council makes a decision on the applications. Today is day 73 of the 120-day review timeline. In terms of settlement area, the subject lands are located in the town of Fort Erie in the Spears High Point Secondary Plan area. The subject lands are comprised of numerous municipal addresses, but are municipally known as the Spears Gardens subdivision, formerly Lulong Ping Gardens, and are located east of Pettit Road, north of Garrison, and south of Bertie Street. The subject lands partially front onto Pettit Road via John Bright Avenue and Terry Drive, with the bulk of the lands located to the rear of existing single detached dwellings along Pettit Road. The subject lands are over 9 hectares in size and are currently vacant, with Terry Drive constructed only. Bertie Centennial Park is located approximately 640 meters from the subject lands, and High Point Park is located approximately 405 meters from the subject lands. Commercial uses are located along Garrison Road adjacent to the subject lands. So here we have the conceptual draft plan of subdivision to be implemented if the applications before council tonight are approved. Staff note, future submission of a Planning Act application will be required. So as you can see, there are a total of 138 blocks and lots proposed as follows. So 119 lots for single detached dwellings, 84 lots for street townhouses, 1 stormwater management facility block, 1 walkway block, 1 future right-of-way connection block, and 1 reserve block. A realigned public road network is proposed that will continue to connect to Pettit Road in 2 locations, John Bright Avenue and Terry Drive. The realigned public road network maintains a minimum right-of-way width of 20 meters. So in terms of neighborhood context, the subject lands are adjacent to an established neighborhood to the west with 1- and 2-story single detached homes on lots varying in size. To the east of the subject lands is a wooded area and an area in transition that is designated and zoned for medium and low density residential purposes. South of the subject lands is a commercial corridor, and north of the subject lands is a large underutilized lot designated and zoned for residential purposes. As previously mentioned, a commercial corridor is located south of the subject lands along Garrison Road. Furthermore, the subject lands are in proximity to existing institutional uses, including public and secondary schools and town hall. There are numerous examples of parks and playgrounds for children in proximity to the subject lands. Bertie Centennial Park is located approximately 640 meters from the subject lands, and High Point Park is located approximately 405 meters from the subject lands. So as seen here, the subject lands are currently vacant with Terry Drive constructed only. And here we have views from Terry Drive looking north, east, south, and west. Here we have views from John Bright Avenue looking north, east, south, and west. So this slide illustrates the existing land use designations of the subject lands. The Spears High Point Secondary Plan designates the subject lands low density and open space. Staff note the amendment to the secondary plan proposes a site-specific policy area that supports street townhouses as a permitted use and increases residential density to 22 units per hectare. Schedule SHP4, the Transportation Systems Plan, and the Spears High Point Secondary Plan envisions a grid-like road network to serve the subject lands. It's the image to the left. The registered plan created a road network that deviates from this vision, resulting in a road pattern that does not reflect a grid-like pattern. However, the proposed road network, although different from the vision established in the secondary plan, more closely aligns with this plan. And that's the image to the far right. So here we have a slide of the proposed zoning for the subject lands. The subject lands are currently zoned site-specific residential 2 R2525 zone, site-specific residential multiple 1 RM1 526 zone, and site-specific open space OS 527 zone in the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone the subject lands to a site-specific R2 zone, a site-specific RM1 zone, and a site-specific OS zone. The site-specific modifications relate to frontage, lot area, and density. No changes to the site-specific OS 527 zone are proposed, and that is the stormwater management pond. This slide highlights the zoning departures requested through the zoning bylaw amendment application. The departures include minimum lot frontage, minimum lot area, and maximum density. The applicant has provided conceptual elevations and renderings of the proposed residential units. The single and street townhouse dwellings represent a built form commonly found throughout the neighborhood and Fort Erie. And this is an overview of the studies and reports submitted in support of the application. All studies were posted online for inspection. However, these studies and reports are also available for review at any time by contacting staff who are assigned carriage of the file. And a public information open house was held on January 7th, 2025 from 5 to 6 p.m. in the atrium. All property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands were notified of the meeting. Town planning staff and the agent were in attendance. 2 members of the public attended the open house. Public comments at the public information open house related to the following: provision of sidewalks, traffic, privacy fences, and density. In response, as it relates to sidewalks, the applications propose sidewalks internal to the subject lands on one side of the public right-of-way. Further, the TIS submitted in support of the applications concluded movement is expected to operate with no delay, queuing, or capacity concerns. And as it relates to privacy fences, they would be permitted in accordance with bylaw number 71-2016. Finally, the proposed density represents an efficient use of land and supports a compact mix of built forms. The secondary plan also encourages intensification within the urban area, and to date, no written comments in support or in opposition to the application have been received. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions council may have. I note the applicant has also prepared a presentation for council's benefit this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morton. Any members of council have any questions? So could you pull up the plan that you had shown, the conceptual plan?
Yep. There you are.
So does Terry Drive have the potential to continue through to the east to link up with Florence?
Down here?
Yeah.
There would be potential. I would note that those lands, the majority of them are designated open space, and it is a wooded area currently.
So this doesn't provide for any type of wildlife corridor, this plan?
No.
Is there any type of wildlife corridor to the north of this property, which would be to the right of that photograph?
From my understanding, no, there is not. The parcel that's located north of the subject lands is currently developed with an existing single detached dwelling, but I'm not aware of any natural corridor that would exist.
Is there potential for opening of a road to the north then? So we've got a couple of streets there, Long Street and...
Through the large parcel here?
Yeah.
There would be potential, and I would note that the secondary plan does call for a road through that parcel as well.
Right, because you indicated that this street arrangement doesn't really match the secondary plan. And so you're shaking your head, that means yes?
That's correct.
Okay. So why would we be departing from that?
So if I could just show you the slide that I believe you're referring to. The intent of this slide was to depict what was previously approved. So you can see that this plan here in the middle deviates from the secondary plan significantly. Whereas what we're reviewing in front of us today more closely aligns with this secondary plan vision that's established on the left-hand side.
Right, and this is a plan that we've already approved in principle much of what's before us tonight. This is a revision to create more lots within a plan.
Through you, yes. So Plan 59M469 is registered, meaning that these lots have been created. The application before us today is to effectively add density to that existing plan that was approved.
And what does the secondary plan provide in terms of density with respect to this area?
The low-density residential designation in the secondary plan permits up to 16 units per hectare.
And this has, these revisions would provide 22 units per hectare.
That's correct.
And so any pedestrian leaving this development would be going, unless they went through the woods, would be going to Pettit Road, correct?
That's correct. There is a pedestrian block proposed on the right-hand side here that, like you say, would lead you into the wooded area. But if you're trying to access, Garrison Road, for example, you'd
Right.
likely traverse through the subdivision onto Pettit Road.
Right. And there are no sidewalks on Pettit Road.
There are no sidewalks on Pettit Road. That's correct.
Are you aware of whether we have any plans to put in sidewalks on Pettit Road?
I am not aware of any plans to upgrade Pettit Road at this current time.
And if it was considered necessary to have sidewalks on Pettit Road, this development and some of the other developments to the west of Pettit one would think would be development or growth-driven needs. So you have pedestrians, don't have a sidewalk, the area grows because there's more housing. That would be typically how you would determine whether or not it's a growth-related project.
Through you, I'm not sure I completely understand the question. The
question is this. We have a development charge study, and the development charge study would identify projects related to growth.
Yep.
So if I were to look at that development charge study, I would be looking for sidewalks on Pettit Road. Would that be a reasonable expectation? I don't know whether they're there, but if they're not, I suppose they should be, should they not?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking. So essentially, the development charges that are generated through this, if they could be devoted towards sidewalks along Pettit Road?
Well, it just seems to me to be, because we've heard in the past that this is a safety issue. There are no sidewalks. It's a relatively narrow road. Traffic goes relatively quickly there. Some of the new housing has occupants that drive even faster than some of the homegrown people. But when you canvass this area during an election campaign, you'll hear from the residents that traffic is an issue. And if you're familiar with the area and you drive it at all, you'll know that so I have a concern about the sidewalks. And we have no ability to compel this developer to provide any sidewalks on Pettit Road, do we?
That's my understanding. I mean, council could choose to include that as a condition in the draft plan of subdivision or the subdivision conditions. However, you may be opening yourself up to an appeal at that point.
Right. Although one would think that if you're selling houses and people are going to be out walking on that road, that you'd want your purchasers to be safe, one would think. Do we have any control over the design of the units that are going in here? You did show some elevations of proposed houses. Do we have any control over the designs, or is that something that we need to work on?
Through you, we would not have the ability to regulate building materials through this application.
So we would be working with the developer and relying upon the developer to provide a mix of housing so that everything doesn't look homogeneous.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll stop my questioning now. Any other questions? Mr. Frost?
Through you, Mayor, I just want to add that there is development charge project SH1C, the Pettit Road South upgrade, which is from Birdie Street to Garrison Road, moving it to an urban cross-section, which would include curb, gutters, and sidewalk. I'm not sure whether it's on one side or both sides of the road at this point in time, but this project exists in our 10-year capital forecast in the year 2030 at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you very much, Mr. Morton. If there are no other questions, we'll go to the agent for the developer. That's Mr. Highcoop. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Thank you for having me tonight. As indicated, my name is William Highcoop. I'm the planning manager at Upper Canada Consultants. I'm here to deliver a presentation for the proposed updated development of the Spears Garden subdivision, formerly known as Lulongping Gardens. As outlined, the applications consist of an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. Devin's done a great job outlining the details for the subject lands, but I'll highlight some of those as well. So you can see the subject lands in the existing lotting pattern shown within the red outline. As indicated, they're east of Pettit Road, south of Birdie, and north of Garrison. The lands are 9.3 hectares, or approximately 23 acres in size. As indicated, they're designated as urban residential in the town's official plan, low density in the Spears High Point secondary plan, and currently have two site-specific zonings, an R2 5-525 and an RM1-526, each one for the singles and the second for the street towns. So the lands have been subject to former development applications as outlined in the staff report and are former namesake Lulongping Gardens. The previous owner had completed all the Planning Act approvals. I'm sure you're all aware the registered subdivision plan 59M-469. Construction was completed on the first phase in 2019. Unfortunately, there was a number of complications with the previous owner, and ultimately the principal of the company had passed away. And we know that that property has been sitting vacant for quite a number of years, which I imagine everyone found to be regrettable. Anyhow, things have changed. The property was sold to a new developer. The owner is now Matt Kernahan. So you'll notice that the ownership has changed, but not necessarily the name on title. One of the things that happened is they actually purchased the real estate corporation when enabled that transition. So I just wanted to be clear about those details. As outlined, you can see the proposed updated plan here showing the reconfiguration. The proposed plan revisions revise the number of detached and street townhouse blocks, resulting in an increase from 103 dwelling units to 203 dwelling units. Those 203 dwelling units consisting of 119 single attached dwellings and 84 street townhouses. At this time, we are seeking to establish the land use provisions for the site, and we will be back in front of council to address the subdivision component at a future time. In terms of the official plan amendment, here you can see an image of the existing land use schedule from the Spears High Point secondary plan. The lands are outlined in pink conveniently. They are, as indicated, they are designated urban residential in the overall official plan and low density in the Spears High Point secondary plan. So the purpose for the official plan amendment is to allow for the permissions for the street townhouse dwellings, tweaks the alignment of that pedestrian connection Devin referenced to its location in the registered plan, so that's something that we're not proposing to change. And lastly, the official plan amendment will allow for an overall density of 22 units per hectare. Here you can see the proposed zoning bylaw amendment schedule. The areas shown in yellow are the locations of the single detached dwellings, and the areas in orange are the locations for the street townhouse dwellings. As indicated, the zoning application includes a request to reduce the required frontage for the single detached dwellings to 10 meters and the associated lot area to allow for smaller single detached dwellings at a more attainable price. Similar request is made for lot area and maximum density for the street townhouse dwellings. Also, as Devin outlined, a number of studies were completed. We have the planning justification, Noyes, the functional servicing and stormwater report, environmental impact study, geotechnical investigation, and I did omit the traffic report, but that was completed as well. I just missed putting it on the list here. The developer is looking to move forward with a home builder or a variety of home builders who have provided us an indication of the proposed house designs. As you can see here, there are some examples of the single detached dwellings and townhouses that are proposed to make up this community. These preliminary plans emulate modern development characteristics, but bring in that traditional element. And this will help integrate them with other proposed designs throughout the surrounding neighborhood. The proposed dwelling units have been thoughtfully designed to provide a variety of housing looks and types that adhere to all demographics. In summary, the development proposal seeks an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment to permit the reconfigured plan for Spears Garden subdivision, allowing 203 dwelling units consisting of 119 single detached dwellings and 84 street townhouses. We feel the development application provides a balance to accommodate the growth targets, improves housing opportunities at an attainable rate, and results in efficient use of land and urban surface lands with access to municipal services. As the proposed plan is within the secondary plan area, it is warranted and encouraged as a place for growth and development. Before I conclude my remarks, I would like to invite Matt Kernahan just to say a couple words to council. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Kernahan.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, staff. Mr. Wharton and William have done a very thorough job, so I'm not going to take any more of your time just about, but I did want to just take this opportunity to thank planning staff for a very thorough and expeditious planning process that we've been through. The current ownership group bought this land back in June, and it's been a very collaborative process with the Town of Fort Erie's Planning Department to this point, and I just wanted to express my appreciation for that, and that we look forward to getting this project moving. Thanks.
So before you go, any members of council have any questions of either Mr. Kernahan or Mr. Haiku? Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. I just have a quick question, and it's with this slide here. Where does Long Street start and stop? Because as you were making the presentation, I follow it and it loops around, but I'm just confused where the next one starts.
Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor. Yeah, that's a good question. So at this point, those two streets are based on the existing roadway from the registered plan. So we've copied those streets over. So when we ultimately come forward with the new subdivision application, we'll be working with staff if they would like a new name for that one stub or how we differentiate those names. We can certainly decide that and come up with the best scenario through that process.
Okay, it's been a long day, but it just made it look like one street going around, and thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else? So just to have me repeat what I'd asked before. So there is the potential for a north extension on either of those north-south streets. Is that correct?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, that is correct. They could be extended north-south, yes.
Okay. And the design, we're getting a lot of developments now with much more dense plans, and sometimes the houses look similar and sometimes they don't. So is there going to be some variety in this 203 units?
Your worship, yes. Unlike some of the subdivisions which come before you, this one is being developed by a developer, not a developer home builder. So we have 4 or 5 different home builders that we sell to. Which or how many of those hasn't yet been determined. We're working through the process towards some certainty on that, but I can tell you that we're not a home builder. We are a developer, and we sell to a number of different home builders, which would likely result in...
And they'll each have different plans, I'm sure.
Right.
And then finally, the reference has been made to attainable units. None of these will be considered affordable?
Yes, Your Worship, that is correct. So the proposal in front of you seeks to reduce the lot sizes and ultimately the housing sizes, which will reduce the price point. But you're correct, they would not meet the definition of affordable.
Any idea what the price point might be, a range?
Your worship, it's a bit difficult for us. As I said, we sell to different home builders. It's not something which is even within our control.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, so that takes us to the part of the public meeting where I'd ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in support of the application other than the proponent or his agent. Mr. Patton, is there anyone in the waiting room?
No, Your Worship.
Okay, so then I will ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in opposition or to raise questions with respect to the proposed application. Please come forward. And could I have your name and address for the record, please?
Talia Reeves, 1178 Pettit Road. And I've spoken to you in the past about development around Pettit Road. Again, not against development and growth. It's the high-density stuff that's getting concerning in my area. Traffic is terrible. Last time we spoke, we proposed that, we would look at a traffic study with all the development, and you had a speed sign go up for a whole 2 days. It went up, it was there for a week and a half, didn't work, worked for 2 days, came down and was moved. So that was disappointing, to say the least. Just listen to, turning on left onto Garrison Road off of Concession. Where are they gonna go? Down Pettit to get onto the Queenie. That's another concern. Like I said, I'm not opposed to the growth. I'm just really concerned being a homeowner, and I'm the lot right across from Nathaniel. I can't get out of my driveway. My husband's had 2 accidents trying to turn out. People waiting for us to get out of our driveway. We're waiting for people because we're afraid to move out. It's just ridiculous. So I'm not going to reiterate again, traffic, but it is concern. The other thing I want to address, and I don't know if this is still true, the original plan for this property, the east side of Long Street, originally was there was a proposal to have a height variance, a higher variance on those homes. I don't know if that still stands or where that landed, or if that's going to be, if it was approved, does that get transferred to this proposal as well? Again, I am right on Long Street, or back onto Long Street, where I had 5 people who were going to be looking at me swimming my pool. I'm now going to have 6 if this design goes out, and they are duplexes. I'm a bungalow. So again, I don't know. That's a question I have and a concern I have. Yeah, that's my objections really.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Reed, for your comments. Any questions by members of council? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Patton, anyone in the waiting room? Anyone who wishes to speak to council about this matter? Madam Clerk, any late correspondence that we should be aware of?
Correspondence, Mayor Redekop.
Okay, then I'm going to declare this public meeting closed, And I'm going to go to Councillor Dubanow to put this report on the floor.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lewis that Council approves the amendment to the town's consolidated 2021 official plan as detailed in report PBBS 15-2025 for the lands known as 1278 Terry Drive, Spears Garden Subdivision, Fort Erie, and further that Council approves the amendment to the town zoning bylaw 12990 as detailed in report PBBS 15-2025 for the lands known as 1278 Terry Drive, Fort Erie, and further, the council directs that a holding provision under section 36(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, be applied to the subject lands and will not be removed until such a time as the owner applicant shall satisfy regional waste collection requirements to the satisfaction of the Niagara Region. The owner applicant shall provide written confirmation from a qualified professional as defined under the Oil, Gas, and Salt Resources Act that the proposed development is located greater than 75 meter from a private gas well. If the proposed development is within 75 meter of a private gas well, the owner applicant shall provide confirmation from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry that the private gas well has been decommissioned in accordance with provincial standards prior to any demolition, construction, grading, or other soil disturbances occurring on the subject property to the satisfaction of Niagara Region and the town's Director of Planning, Building, and Bylaw Services. The owner applicant shall demonstrate drainage and stormwater management of this development and adjacent lands is accommodated as set out in the Spears High Point Neighborhood Master Plan Servicing Study as attached and Spears High Point Secondary Plan as attached to the satisfaction of the town's Director of Infrastructure Services. The owner applicant submits and receives final approval of revised functional servicing report prepared and certified by a licensed professional civil engineer with respect to the development's sanitary sewer proposal and proposed peak flows, and are able to demonstrate sufficient capacity within the sanitary system to the satisfaction of the town's Director of Infrastructure Services. That council directs staff to submit the necessary official plan and zoning amendment bylaws. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just on the issue of Pettit Road, which I agree. I think it's getting a little out of hand with what's going on there. And I was very happy to hear that we do have this as part of our development charges bylaw. I'm just wondering if maybe, I think 2030 was the target, which would be 5 years from now and kind of goes in line with when you'd expect a build out to occur. But I'm just wondering, is it any possibility to get some certainty from staff that if 2030 is the target, that we would be looking at 2030, if not sooner, to have this done? And I think it goes without saying with not only this development, but also the development to the west, we really need to do something about Pettit Road, Your Worship.
Any comments, Mr. Frost?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Redekop. I would state that our 10-year capital forecast, anything outside of the 3 years, is essentially our best guess and efforts to accommodate what we really have say is what we're doing this year, next year, and the following. When we start to look at that 5 year out, as well as looking at the growth pressures experienced, every capital budget season, every August, September, October, we look at this, we reevaluate needs, we look at the growth that's occurred, the growth that's draft plan approved, that's starting to move forward as well, and then look at to see, should we bring projects forward because we've seen things shape out differently than initially thought. So yes, there will be that consideration each and every capital budget season moving forward to make sure that we are bringing services online in accordance with how we have grown.
Councillor Dubanow.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I really appreciate that answer. Certainly, us here on council and those of us who may still be here going forward, you know, there is going to be an election. I certainly hope this is something that we also keep front of mind for staff as well, because we really need sidewalks on that road. And just a comment as well, when we do get to that point, with it being the main access road that comes in from the QEW, I think this would be a prime candidate to look at some traffic calming measures. I even envision perhaps a pedestrian crossover at Long to kind of tie into Nathaniel to make it easier for residents to access the park on Sharon Drive. So I'm putting this out there for staff and also for residents so they understand that this is a concern we share as well. Development pressure isn't going away. We have to find ways to mitigate it, and getting this project done sooner rather than later, as reasonably possible, will go a long way to doing that. If I may, Your Worship, another question. The proposed plan includes some pedestrian linkages to the kind of the woodlot to the east of the property. And I know from the Spears High Point secondary plan that there are some kind of a pedestrian linkage kind of running north of Garrison Road to kind of allow east-west movement bypassing that kind of heavy commercial road. Is this something that there's any plan envisioned with road connections or anything? I know during the presentation this was kind of mentioned, but do we have any plans for getting a trailway in through there or anything to utilize these connections? It kind of goes to the pedestrian safety issue, not just on Pettit Road, but also on Garrison Road. Just any comment that staff may have.
Dilawri, I'm going to go to you on that.
Your Worship, we can definitely look into that. We recently approved the Parks and Open Space Master Plan, so there would be a reference. I don't have that information in front of me, but I would be happy to get that information to you.
And if I may, Your Worship, that would be very helpful, just to get an idea of the way it's going to build out through there. It's it's a challenge we face, and these are concerns that residents are raising. So any way we can mitigate it would be quite good. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm going to call the question with respect to the recommendations. All those in favor? Unopposed, that is carried. That then takes us to the consent agenda. And Councillor Flagg, you have a resolution for the consent agenda.
I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that the council approves the consent agenda as recommended.
Thank you. Any questions or comments with respect to any of the items contained in the consent agenda? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just with respect to the, actually there's two items on correspondence here. The first item is the proclamation of World Autism Day on April 2nd. As I say every year, my wonderful son William, who is the most amazing human being in the world, who makes me smile and a better human being every day that I've been fortunate enough to know him. He's diagnosed with ASD. It's not something I view as a detriment. It's something that I view as being his unique character and makes him such an amazing human being. So as his dad, I always use this as an opportunity to comment whenever this is on the agenda, and I'm always happy when we support that. And if I may, Your Worship, the second item, 11.2.2, which is to receive and support the Great Lakes St. Lawrence, the response to potential trade issues between Canada and the United States. I'm really happy to see this on the agenda, and I support it wholeheartedly. One thing I do want to point out to the community is that this is an organization that is made up of both Canadian municipalities as well as American municipalities. And I think regardless of the heightened tensions and the emotions that we're feeling right now, I think it's always important to point out that there are neighbors, there are friends, presidents come and go just like prime ministers come and go, but in the end these relationships are important, and they existed before us, and they're going to continue to exist long after we're gone. So I'm really happy to see this right now, that our American friends are standing with us in solidarity right now, and I certainly appreciate that and support that, and I'm looking forward to seeing these individuals when we head down there in May, Your Worship. So I thank you for the opportunity to comment.
You're welcome. Anyone else? So just on that point, I want to, so that the audience at home is aware of this, the resolution passed by the board of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative has as its main focus calling on all states and provinces in the region in collaboration with local governments to take immediate and decisive action to oppose these tariffs. Encourage the American and Canadian federal governments to consider relief measures for municipalities, calling its members to collaborate on strategies to mitigate economic damage from a trade war, and working with stakeholders from across the region, that's the binational region, to explore the possibility of a Great Lakes St. Lawrence Unity Summit. And so, just so that the public is aware of what's contained in the resolution that you've referenced. If there are no other questions, then I'm going to call the question with respect to the consent agenda. All those in favor of the recommendations? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us to, since we've dealt with report PBBS 16-2025, that takes us to new business inquiries. Councillor McDermott.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I want to direct this to Mr. Frost with regards to the downtown snow clearing, especially on the sidewalks. I've been told that the minimum maintenance standards is, if it exceeds 8 centimeters, then we'll tend to it. My problem is, it's not so much the 8 centimeters I'm worried about. I'm worried about the severe ice that we've had over the past. And so it's been suggested to me by infrastructure that they will deploy a contractor if council approves that, because it's under this minimum maintenance standards program. It's pretty hard to explain that to the older residents that uses the downtown, the business areas. The Facebook pages have been lit up with the fact that we've had ice, we've had falls, that people are finding it rather treacherous. That all being said, I would like to ask Mr. Frost, what is it that council can do tonight to solve this problem for the rest of the winter anyway? What action should we take?
Mr. Frost, knowing that council won't be able to take any action tonight, but what's the suggestions from the staff perspective of how this could be addressed?
Yes, through your worship. I'd just like to start by saying that our winter maintenance staff have been almost on continuous deployment since noon on Friday, February 14th, plowing the roads, sanding the roads, deploying salt very sparingly where it's so required due to the shortage we have, but also the ineffectiveness when we've gotten some of the cold temperatures we have. Our sidewalks have undergone a change in minimum maintenance. I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, it was at the property owner's requirement to clear their sidewalks, but in 5, 6 years ago, it was changed to become the municipality's responsibility to maintain them in winter operations. We looked at hiring a contractor and put out a contract to do so at a cost of, I want to say, approximately $250,000, $300,000 per year, I believe it is, for that contractor to clear the sidewalks with their plows as well as sand and, again, salt where deemed necessary. Our contractor does abide by these standards to clear when the accumulation is 8 centimeters or greater, or if the snow drifts are 1 meter or higher, creating sightline and visibility issues. We have spent considerable time, resources, and budget this year on winter maintenance, given the winter that we've had. So I was directing council that if you want us to deploy the equipment beyond that of what is required by our contractual obligations and legislative requirements, there will be a cost associated to get that contractor out in a year where we are already going to or target exceeding our budget for winter maintenance given the winter. So it would be that council directs staff to seek a cost estimate for additional services, as well as how do we choose where to perform the additional maintenance. Is it limited to the BIAs? Is it limited to streets near senior centers, school zones, whatever it may be? We would need that guidance from council on how to proceed to equitably spend that additional monies and treat the town with some sort of degree of fairness. We would need guidance on how to go about that at council's direction.
Councillor McDermott.
Well, I'm specifically talking about the BI areas right now. I'm just very concerned, Your Worship, about the fact that I don't want anyone to get hurt because of the fact that we know that there's trouble there and we're not doing anything about it. I can't live with that.
I don't think it's fair to say we're not doing anything about it. I think that's a mischaracterization, but this is a matter.
I'm not accusing it. I'm not being accusatory. You know, you
That's what
have
you said.
citizens that talk to you every day, and they have to manipulate these sidewalks. Simple as that. I mean, caring for your constituents, that's my job.
So what you would need to do, Councillor McDermott, based on what Mr. Frost has said, is you'd have to bring forward a notice of motion, and then council can determine what we're going to do, because as Mr. Frost says, it's not just the BIAs, there are school networks, there are areas where seniors live throughout the town, and this is a challenge for them throughout the town, so we'd have to provide some direction. This may be something that, before the next council meeting, perhaps Infrastructure Services could have some discussion with staff and maybe get a little bit of clarity and maybe some better understanding of the framework, and that might inform Councillor McDermott of what kind of motion you might want to bring forward. Does that sound agreeable? Okay. Anything further, Councillor McDermott? Anyone else? Councillor Lewis.
Yeah, I'll just briefly jump in there too. I think it's imperative that we look at all the BIA districts, the Ridgeway, Crystal Beach, and Stevensville, because I know that's been topic of concern for several years from both residents and businesses alike. So I'd welcome some additional feedback from staff when they're able to provide it to council.
Right, and since you're on the Infrastructure Services, you can take that up. Do you know when the next meeting is?
Not
Within the next
offhand,
couple of
but
weeks, probably? Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship, just piggybacking on the topic of snow plowing, I did see that one Niagara municipality, I believe it was St. Catharines, actually had implemented the ability to get kind of like some GPS tracking of the snow plows and where they're located, and to be able to put it online. And I'm just putting this out there, perhaps, Councillor Lewis, or during the next Infrastructure Services Committee meeting, maybe to look into that. I believe they're GPS tracked already, and it's just interfacing. The reason I raise this, the more information that council has access to, the more information that residents have access to, it's very helpful. If they see that the plow is just up the road, might save them from having to make a phone call and an inquiry. And I'm just putting that out there. Anything we can do to help this situation out.
So that is a discussion that Mr. McQueen, the CAO, and I've had, and I thought that was a brilliant idea as well, to make sure that this was online so all the residents could see it. There may be some pitfalls with respect to that, and that's the type of thing that some discussions can be had at the subcommittee meeting, and maybe provide a little bit of information. I'll speak further to you about that as well. But yeah, no, there's no question that there are some things that can be done to make this more transparent to the public. We've had a lot of snow the last little while, and the problem has been mostly the ice. But I think the staff has done a pretty good job in managing the snow that we've had. The ice has been a problem, and then the question is, what are the standards? How much money do we have available to spend, and where do we put our attention? So those are all legitimate issues, and I thank councillors for that. Is there anyone else that has any other new business or inquiries? If not, Councillor McDermott, you have a resolution for us to go into closed session?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Flagg, that council go into closed session at 7:59 p.m. to consider the following item: 14.1, closed session minutes, January 27, 2025. Item 14.4.2, closed session minutes, February 10, 2025. Item 14.3, memorandum litigation update pursuant to Section 239(2)E of the Municipal Act 2001, litigation or potential litigation including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And item 14.4, memorandum 3770 Hazel Street pursuant to Section 239E of the Municipal Act 2001, litigation or potential litigation including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipal or local board. That's municipality or
Any
local
questions or
board.
comments? All those in favor? That is carried, so we're going into closed session. Okay, we're back into the council chambers, and Councillor Lewis, you have a resolution for us to rise and reconvene from closed session.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that council does now rise and reconvene from closed session at 8:17 p.m. with report item 14.1 that council approves the closed session minutes of January 27th, 2025, and item, excuse me, 14.2 that council approves the closed session minutes of February the 10th, 2025, and item 14.3 that council receives a memorandum litigation update for information purposes, and 14.4 that council receives a memorandum 3770 Hazel Street for information purposes.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us to motions. And Councillor McDermott, could I hand the chair to you to, for me to bring this motion forward?
Yes, for your worship, you can.
Thank you very much. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I move, seconded by Councillor Flagg, whereas a significant section of the walkway at Waverly Beach / Erie Beach along Lake Erie was demolished by a storm on Halloween night 2019, and whereas the town of Fort Erie has received funding from the provincial government under a municipal disaster relief program to reconstruct the walkway, and whereas there have been numerous delays in proceeding with the reconstruction project, including the COVID pandemic, and whereas it is time to proceed with the reconstruction of the walkway without further delay, now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to proceed with the design work for reconstruction of the walkway at Waverly Beach / Erie Beach as close to the original profile as possible as the preferred location, and further that all necessary steps be considered, including additional structural reinforcement if necessary, to ensure the sustainability and resilience of the reconstructed walkway, and further that the project shall be ready for tendering as soon as possible and no later than September 15th, 2025, so the walkway reconstruction can commence before the end of 2025. May I speak to that? So I brought this forward simply because there has been a lot of well, there's been, let me say not a lot of, let me say a lack of, a sense of urgency for the reconstruction of this walkway, which is a high-profile site in the town of Fort Erie. It's adjacent to a very well-used park where there's a very well-used walk through a wooded area, which we now own. And there is some historic significance of this whole area. It's now over 5 years, and some of the issues have been resolved that would have led to this, but I'm sure most of you have received numerous calls, emails, criticisms about why this walkway hasn't been started. And I know that there are a variety of options, but I don't want to be paralyzed by the fact that we're considering a whole bunch of possibilities when we had a perfectly good location. Obviously, it needs to be reinforced. That may require some additional money. I get that. But I'm hoping that you'll support us moving forward with this. I've discussed this with the CAO, who's discussed this with staff, so that the wording provides the latitude that I believe staff requires in the event the original location isn't quite where it should be. But in my view, we need to deal with this. We need to move forward with this. And as long as that's sitting there, it's a nice relic, but it's not reflective of what we want this community to be known for. And so hopefully you'll all support this. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments by councillors? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. You can have the chair back now.
Thank you very much. Excellent job, Councillor McDermott. Okay, that. So are there any notices of motion? Councillor McDermott?
Yes, I'll be bringing one forward with regards to snow plowing sidewalks.
And that's returnable March the 31st?
Yes.
Okay, and then you'll be working with staff to get appropriate wording on that? Okay. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I would like to put forward a notice of motion. I will work with staff on the wording, but the intent is for free business patron parking within the 3 BIA districts, Bridgeburg, Ridgeway, and Crystal Beach in municipal lots, including street parking.
And that's returnable March 31st?
Correct, Your Worship.
And Councillor Dubanow?
Yes, Your Worship, I'm going to be bringing forward a motion on March 31st as well for staff to provide an update on the sewer servicing situation in Ward 2 along the Garrison Road corridor, as well as a timeline for construction. And I'll be working with staff on that as well.
Mr. Frost, on that point, I know that there's been some activity that's taken place. Is there any chance that we would have some type of memo from staff prior to March the 31st or for March 31st rather than have a formal motion?
Through you, Your Worship, there are two, I would say, catchment areas along Garrison Road. There is those serviced by the Alliston Sanitary Pump Station west of there, and then there's the issues that are basically east of that pump station, which feed into what we call the Catherine Street catchment area. We are working with the region and a private developer through a joint or co-pay kind of agreement to get some pump flow monitoring information at the pump station to identify what is the root cause of the extraneous flow, or is it just a pump station limitation because of the development we've seen. We have put in numerous requests within the last few weeks from the region of what's the data saying and what is the report. We will continue to pressure to try and get the analysis from that this week. As for the works to the east, we have a wastewater rehabilitation project that we have sitting in draft RFP right now to address some of the extraneous flows in the Catherine Street area, basically going out and relining a whole bunch of the sewers to tighten them up, as well as the manhole relining program where we are simply waiting for a period of time. I think it's about 3 to 5 days of, I want to say 6 degrees or warmer, where we can reline 10 of these manholes. The liners, if they're not in stock yet, will be in stock at our works yard very soon. So we can follow up with a memo if so be it, but that's the update I have at this point in time.
So when's our next committee meeting? March the 17th? Is it possible for there to be a memo that would provide some of the background information that you've just mentioned, plus any additional information that comes to your knowledge in the meantime?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, we could prepare a brief memo summarizing where we're at, yes.
Okay, and then that'll inform whether we need to proceed with the notice or not, but you've given notice for March 31st, may or may not be required. Any other notices of motion that anyone wishes to provide? If not, then that takes us to consideration of bylaws, and Councillor Flagg, do you have first and second reading for the bylaw package?
I absolutely do.
Before you proceed, is there anyone that wants any of the bylaws removed from the package? If not, please proceed.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaw package containing 12/2025 to amend bylaw 70-2023 to revise the Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee's term of reference, 13/2025 to name the existing park located at 3781 Ryan Avenue to Stadium Park, 14/2025 to amend zoning bylaw 129-90 as amended, 986 Ridge Road North, 15/2025 to adopt an affordable housing improvement plan, 16/2025 to authorize the entry into a development agreement with Baden Lawrence Earl, 129 Maple Avenue North, 17/2025 to adopt the general capital budget and general levy operating budget for the town of Fort Erie for the year 2025 are given first and second reading.
All those in favor? That package is on the floor for any questions or comments. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make a brief comment with 13/2025, the naming of the park.
Yep.
I just want to take a moment. I know you mentioned it at the last meeting of the work that Gary Pooler, the Museum Services, the Birdie Historical Society, and several others. But this is quite exciting. I know I've had a couple of comments from people in the neighborhood asking, when's the stadium being built? And it's led to some rather interesting, conversations where I said, just Google Crystal Beach Stadium and you'll find what we're talking about. But hopefully we get creative with the opening of this park. And I think we're going to have a real good showing of some people interested in local history showing up for this. But I think Gary should be commended, and I did speak with him prior to the meeting tonight and told him I knew this was going to go through, but I'm glad you did it nonetheless.
For sure. So that'll be a mini stadium. Okay. Any other questions or comments before we go to third and final reading? If not, then Councillor McDermott, you have third and final reading.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Flagg. The bylaws 12-2025 to 17-2025 inclusive are given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us to scheduling of meetings. Are there any meetings that anyone wishes to alert us to? Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee will be meeting here at Town Hall on March 5th at 1 p.m. Looks like we're scheduled for Conference Room 1. And because we've had such a large workload, we've actually got another meeting scheduled as well on, looks here, the 12th, yes, on March 12th, also at 1 p.m. Here at Town Hall in Conference Room 1.
Thank you. Okay. We're not done yet. Councillor Christensen, did you put the clerk up to this?
No, Your Worship, but I was going to wave my arm.
Okay, perfect. Please proceed. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaw 18/2025 to confirm the actions of council at its Council and Budget Committee meeting held on January 29th, 2025, and its Council and Committee meeting held on February 10th, 2025, and its Council meeting held on February 24th, 2025 is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Lewis, third and final reading, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that bylaw 18/2025 is given third and final reading, be signed by the mayor and the clerk and the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Okay, now back to scheduling of meetings. Any other meetings? Councillor Christensen.
Yes, Your Worship, on March the 5th, the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee will meet at Town Hall in Committee Room 1 at 10 a.m. and the Ridgeway Business Improvement Area Board of Management will meet at the Crystal Ridge Library at 5 p.m.
I'm sorry, what day was that? Thank you. Any others? If not, then Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Flagg that council adjourns at 8:30 p.m. to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on March 31st, 2025.
All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you all.